recording started.
Okay, so that's kind of like where we start off, and what I think we could do is, if you want to, I'll leave it up to you, but I think it's a good idea to start off talking about the elements
Okay.
of love before we start talking about where we are, because then it'll be apparent to people, to themselves, and to us
Mm-hmm.
why we actually do what we do in love. So
Okay. How would you like me to ask that question? Do you have an idea?
yeah, I mean, you can just ask me. I mean, basically, again, like, Bill, what can love be actually broken down? And you've heard something about the love triangle, so you want to explain something about that to me or something. I'll leave it up to you
Okay.
because there's, yeah,
So I will ask you question first to kick off this topic from.
yeah. Or what you can do, Jane, is you can say, well, look, we were talking about this last time, and then I can actually just, I can just chime in and say, well, hey, before we go any further into talking about my relationship and your relationship and what's going on, we have to find out where the foundation of that comes from. And so then we go in to talk about the love triangle.
Okay, sure. So Bill, welcome back.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good
So
to be back.
thank you so much for being back. So we were talking about the last time from where we left off. Bill Calhoun's personal criteria of an ideal relationship, or AKA real love. Yeah. So would you like to touch on a little bit more what it entails in the idea of so-called, if let's say someone were to have a relationship with you, what is that three core values? Or maybe you can name more than three, but the top three main core values that the person should have with you when they are in a relationship with you.
Oh, okay, Jane, let me try to help make this understood for everybody out there, because it's not just me. It would be you, it would be everyone else that's listening,
Yes,
right?
please.
I think it's important for people to understand. In other words, why do I like the things that I like? That's the question. Because things evolve. So what I would do is I would break it down. Okay, there's this psychologist by the name of Sternberg, and he came up with
Sternberg.
this thing called the love triangle. Yeah, Sternberg.
Love
And I
triangle.
kind of follow pretty much what he was talking about before. Let me try to break it down for people out there.
Yes.
So it's called the love triangle, and it's not what most people think a love triangle is, where you have three different people doing this
Like a
menage a
threesome
trois
kind of
stuff.
thing.
Yes, there
Okay.
is that. There is that, but that's not what we're talking about here.
All right.
The love triangle encompasses three things, and most people will understand this because they're just very simple words. And it is the love triangle is based on passion,
Passion.
intimacy,
Okay.
and commitment. So it's
Passion.
passion, intimacy, and commitment.
All right.
And so what does that mean? Let me break this down. So passion, everyone is familiar with passion, right? It's when we meet someone on the first date, we're feeling really giddy about going out on a date, we get all doled up, the heart palpitations, all that kind of stuff that we started talking
Butterflies.
about last time. Yeah, butterflies. And it's typically more physical, right?
Physical.
That's where passion is. There's not much else there. There's just that passion. The second one, which is intimacy.
Intimacy.
Intimacy is there. It's more platonic. There's not a lot of physicality, and it's like you like someone. It's friendship. It's familiarity. That's what intimacy is.
Where you feel
And then-
safe to talk about
Yeah.
anything with the person.
Yeah, because they're like your friend, right? But you still love them, right? And then the last one is commitment. So now commitment, it doesn't have any passion and it doesn't have any intimacy, but it has duty. For
Duty.
example, exactly. It's where a lot of arranged marriages are created, because there's that commitment. That means you want to do something, but you don't feel anything. You don't like the person. You don't feel sexually attracted to the person.
Okay.
But you feel dutified to go ahead and be with that person.
Right.
Now, in terms of, so if we were to expand on that a little bit, it's not just those three. So that's like the triangle, right? That's the love triangle. But you can have a combination of those.
Okay.
And that's kind of like what we go through. That's what I went through. And I realized when I did my research, I realized that I actually fall into one of these categories. And just about everyone else out there, Jane, falls into the category. So let's take, for example, a person who falls into the love category of of commitment and passion.
Okay.
So if you think about that, commitment and passion is where an individual, they like someone, right? Because you have that. I'm sorry, they don't like someone because that's intimacy, but they're committed and they have passion. So the sex drive is really strong and they're committed to doing this. Now, this typically happens with celebrities. This typically this typically happens with those reality television shows like Married at First Sight, Love is Blind,
Whoa, okay.
Temptation Island,
Whoa.
Bachelor,
reality
Bachelorette.
TV.
Yes, because when you think about it, they usually focus on the physicality of it, right? The beautiful people, and then they're committed by the producers. The producers are pretty much saying behind the scenes, "We've got to finish this whole series." So even if you hate someone, you got to keep going, right? Because
Some
they
of the
don't get
things
paid.
might be scripted. Like, can you guys
Correct.
please make up just for a moment and end it properly?
Correct, because they have to finish the 13 episodes, correct? And so that's when you have love, where you have commitment and passion. It's also, Jane, where celebrities fall. You find out that all of a sudden XYZ got together and it's like, whoa, and the next thing you know, they divorce, right? Because they didn't have that intimacy. Now, then we go on to passion and intimacy. So the sex drive is huge. The fact that you get butterflies all the time is wonderful. And you're intimate. That means you like the person, right? You feel like they're a friend. Now, this is kind of like where everyone really wants to be. The problem is, what are we missing? We're missing that third one, which is commitment. And this is what happened, right? This is what happened when everything seems to be going okay. And then someone brings up the M word, as in M. Marriage word, right?
Marry me.
Right?
You know, like we're having hot sex and please marry me. Dude. Okay, go ahead, please.
And then someone runs, right? Because that basically when you only have passion and when you only have that passion and intimacy, the friendship and the physicality, that's a kind of a now thing. That's not the future.
So this is what I have wrote on my piece of note every time when we are doing this talk show. So this triangle that you're talking about, the love triangle, makes sense. Yeah, you can't have all three elements at the same time, but it's more of like just two.
But you can.
But you can,
You can. I'll get to that in just a moment. Okay?
Please.
Hang on to your drawing because this is where the combination comes in. Okay, so the how many did I just say? 1, 2, and 3. So the next one is intimacy and commitment. Okay.
Yes.
Intimacy and commitment. Now, people are going to be familiar with this one as well. You know how when couples are together, as time goes on, they will say, well, you know what? There's no more passion in our relationship, but I really like the person. I think they're a really good friend and we have kids. So I don't want to end our marriage because there's really no reason. It's just that, we're not doing it. I mean, I don't get butterflies anymore. That's when you have intimacy and commitment. You see how all this kind of comes together?
Oh my gosh. It's magical that you're mentioning it right now because I can think of different sort of relationships I had just within this year itself. Yeah.
Right.
And it falls under these three sides. Oh, please go ahead and share.
Exactly.
Whoa.
It's the same thing, Jane. I found myself going through these different phases as well. And then the last one, which is what you were hitting on, we'd all like to have all three of those. That means we want to have the passion, the intimacy, and the commitment. That's when we have bliss, right? And it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's sort of like when people talk about, their parents will say things like, you know what, I don't really need anyone else. I don't want anyone else because this person just rocks my world.
Right, gives
because
you
they
everything.
like them. Yeah, they give me butterflies. They're my best friend. It's committed, right? It doesn't happen much in today's modern civilization.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, it really doesn't happen that often as it should these days. Probably back when I remember the time when I truly had all these landed in an actual relationship was before the emails come along, before the IRC come along, before the internet actually was so modernized and advanced. Yeah. Do you think technology has a great part in creating this love triangle phenomenon to happen more often these days, you feel?
Which one? You mean
This
the reason why we don't have the three and where we
yes.
only have a pairing of these?
Yeah, like this triangle is
Yeah, I
happening
think.
more often now these days.
Oh yeah, I think so. Okay, so let's take the first one. Not the first one. Okay, we'll leave commitment out
No
because
problem.
commitment is not really in the technology era. It's usually a combination of passion, right? And maybe intimacy. Because if we're talking about dating apps, obviously that is passion filled because you don't even know the person, right? You're looking at them superficially, and so you get all giddy and bubbly because a person looks good or they look like what you like, right? And so that's the first thing. So technology is a major player in that kind of a thing. Now, if we were to take technology the next phase, right? Where you schedule a date. Well, then you're not using technology anymore, are you? Because you're actually showing up physically. And so now the real world takes place. But you're right, Jane. Technology, whether or not you're talking about Match.com, whether or not you're talking about Tinder, all these things, even though they have you fill out all of these values, like what do you like, you really can't know a person until you get down
It's
and
true.
start, right? So yeah, you're right.
And also
Yeah.
without this impression of each other over social media profiles, especially someone like yourself, I believe you can relate, and someone even like myself, small time, I can relate to. Like we oftentimes may have portrayed a sort of persona in front of our audience, and our potential partners may not may already have set this perception of us via
Yep.
the World Wide Web. So to get them to truly know us, okay, it's like filling a brain up with information that is already full, like filling a cup that is already full. So how can the person that has already a perception filled of cup of a perception filled in their cup get to know us better because of this technology? That's such a
Yeah.
great thing to take note of. You have no idea. Yeah. So please touch on more. I would love to jump straight to the question. How do you
Okay.
think, okay, in our during this modern time of days, can we help so-called what can we do with ourselves for ourselves to land more onto this sort of relationship that has the commitment, passion, and intimacy factor, all these three landed? How can we all
Yeah.
find love and relationship like this? It's so rare.
Yeah. I think the first step, Jane, is to understand that you actually have these three facets because many times we just kind of right? We just go for it. But and then what we do is we complain or we get really upset and then a lot of people will think, okay, I will never find a relationship, right? Or if I found someone, all men are evil, right? Or something like that. But it's not that. If you break it down, so think about this, right? If you're constantly using technology, as you mentioned, then there's no way you're ever going to be able to discover commitment because you don't really know the person. So what I would suggest,
Yes.
and in order to get closer to passion, intimacy, and commitment, is to make sure that you actually get beyond the passion, right? Get
Beyond the
beyond the
passion.
passion whereby you're not just going out on dates all the time. You're not dressing up and giddy. You do something different. You get to that intimacy level. How do you do that? Because remember, that's familiarity and friendship. So do something as a friend, right? Like for example, go ahead and cook together. Go ahead and be vulnerable with another person, whereby you share your experience and see if they as a friend can give you advice. And so
Okay.
now you're starting to leap into that. So you move from physicality to intimacy. Now the commitment part, that's kind of like the tough one because that's when you're basically going to spend some time or
Of course.
decide to, right? You're gonna say, okay, we're either gonna get engaged or we're gonna stick together for a long time. Now, here's the thing, Jane. We still love our friends, right? You have friends that you love. The commitment is there because if you grew up with someone, you're always gonna be their friend and you love them. So it's important to understand now, what are you trying to do? If you're a person, don't tell yourself that you can never be in a committed relationship because we are all the time. We have best friends who have been with us for our lives. That's commitment
And we
and we
don't,
love them.
it's naturally we have this bond and we
Yeah,
just don't do anything that would break that bond, that would
right.
betray
So
that
I
bond.
think, correct. I think where people get confused is dating or that passion part. They think,
The dating
okay,
scene, you mean?
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Please elaborate more.
Okay, so when most people feel like they will never fall in love,
Mm-hmm.
this, I think it's kind of a stupid phrase, to be honest with you, Jane. I really do. Do you know
Yeah, here
why?
is so common these days, right?
There's no failure in love. It
Mm,
just depends on who you love. For example, you love your
mm,
friends. You're committed. You have intimacy with them. You're familiar with them. You're friendly. You're just not passionate. You're not going to bed with your best friend, right?
mm,
That's love. And
mm.
if you can hang on to that, that's good enough. Now, if you're saying to yourself, gosh, you know what? Every relationship I go into passionately, the guy leaves or the girl leaves after a period of time. Well,
Mm-hmm.
duh, because you're just in it for a physical thing. You're not trying to take it any further. So
Right.
the reason why I think it's kind of stupid is I believe at the end of the day, you have to step back and look at what love really is.
Mm,
We are drowning in love, but we're complaining about it. We're not seeing love for what it really is. I think it's bigger than this whole dating scene.
mm-hmm.
I think it's bigger than the fact that someone doesn't like the way you look. I think there's so much more. It's love is so much more complicated, which is why up until this time people are still writing songs about it.
Mm.
Science is still studying it
Yes.
because it's complicated. If we can love just one aspect of that, I
Okay.
think we're going to be happier people. Because remember, Jane,
Okay.
love does not mean you're going to be happy, right?
True.
But you can still love and not be happy. Your
True.
friends, that's the reason why you go to your friends. If you're unhappy because you love them, that intimacy shows that they're going to listen to you. That's that friendship. Do you see what I mean? Anyway,
Yes.
so
Actually, you touched on a very good point on in regards to when you're in love or feeling love. At the same time, you can feel good and you can feel at your worst as well. Actually, science has also proven that because love is equivalent of an actual induce of recreational drugs. Like you can actually induce the feelings of being in love for the first time, feeling butterflies and all that, but chemically induced. Yeah. So
right.
also at the same time, there's also this heartbreak syndrome, broken heart syndrome. People actually have there's actual medical records in the history of medical science. There are people that actually died from a broken heart. Yeah. So
Oh, really?
yeah, I know. Big surprise. Welcome to my world. I'm an expert in this topic. So anyway, we'll come to that later maybe. But okay, so let's address the commonly most known relationship within these triangle love triangle factors. The most common relationship I've seen these days is like what you mentioned, the marriages, committed relationships even. Why do you think so often these sort of relationships that has the commitment factor and the intimacy factor landed, but not the passion and the physical sexual factor landed? Why do you think that happens? What contributes to that?
That's a good question. I'm just gonna venture a guess here. First of all, they
Please.
probably started off that way. Otherwise, they wouldn't have met each other. As long as it wasn't an arranged marriage, right?
Okay.
The thing is that I don't think it's important. I think at the end of the day, the physical part, it's it's just biology. You know what I mean? It's sort of like our animalistic urges. Because it really doesn't do any good for us unless we want to procreate. Just
Mm.
just pump out babies, right? Because that's what
The
biology
irony,
is.
pumping out
Yeah.
babies. Go
Yes,
ahead.
because that's what we're supposed to do as human beings on a basic level, right?
Mm.
And so when that wears off, I don't think we should be so troubled by it.
Okay.
Because when you think about it, friendship, love, and all those are things that last, right? Those are things that are important because we need someone. And then the
Mm.
commitment is, well, we can't really get anywhere
Mm.
unless we commit to working things out.
Mm.
So I think the question would better be posed as to why are people worried about it when the passion wears off?
Yeah.
And I would answer them in that you don't need to worry. You're just progressing to a different level. Now, you can bring passion back, but I don't think it's crucial. I think out of the three,
Okay.
the commitment and the intimacy is the most important.
But don't as a life transformational coach, do you have by any chance any clients coming to you asking say, "Hey Bill, I love my wife, I love my husband and all that, but I just don't feel the fire for him or her. What can I do? What can I do?" Do you have clients like this that comes to you for
Oh
help?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
And
okay. Mm,
and Jane, to be honest with you, I've been in relationships like that as well, where the passion just kind of died. But let's talk about my clients, okay?
Okay.
Without mentioning their names. And the first thing I ask them is, why is it important? Why is it important to have that passion? And then they pause for a bit because they really have to think, well, why is that important? And you know what the answer will typically be?
Please.
In their own head, because it's hard for them to articulate it.
Yes.
It's a selfish thing. I want to get off. I mean, seriously, Jane, that's
biology.
I want to, I want to get off, and I'm not able to feel that. And so then what they do, and the reason why they raise this is because there is probably a problem. They either, cheated on them or something like and now they're creating problems, right? And then they find out, because here's the thing. When you cheat on someone, you have that passion, but then there's no intimacy or commitment. And so that's the reason why it dies. And then they spoil their intimacy and committed relationship, right? And so that's when they come to me, because they go, gosh, I screwed up, right?
Because the passion part, the triangle is broken.
Correct.
Okay.
And so what I tell them when that happens, I say, hey, look, you just need to keep moving forward, because if you don't have passion, it's no big deal. However, you have to step back and look. If that's all you want, then go for it. But then the person that you've committed your life to and the person that you're intimate to, you have to let them know.
Communication.
And then you just go off and just start, excuse my language, you just start boning everyone you want to, right? I mean, seriously, that's what you want to do. Just be a dog. Run around and do that. I mean, seriously, that's all it really is. When I break it down like that, then they start to think and they go, yeah. And you know what? I know we're going to get a bit racy here, Jane, but then they say, well, what am I going to do? And I say, you please yourself. Because you either masturbate yourself. No, seriously, because it's biology. If you want to get off,
can't deny that nature, bro.
Exactly, right? If that's what you want to do, you know why? Because if they go out to try to seek it from another person, what are you going to give up? What is it, Jane? Those commitments and that intimacy with the person.
Yeah.
Correct.
Unless, like what you mentioned. Yes. Unless what you mentioned, there's communication in between.
Yeah.
That is I'm going to write this word down, communication, okay, to add some fun into that triangle chart that I redrew, by the way, yeah, because this topic you just brought it up is so interesting. So this is what I wrote on my piece of a triangle, this word right here. I know it's inverted, you can't actually see it. So basically this word that is going to keep these three triangles together is actually called communication. Do you think this would be a great word to draw the line in between these all three factors?
Yeah, I think it's great. You know what you're going to have to do, Jane? You're going to have to make that available to all your viewers.
Definitely take a screenshot and post it on, maybe it could be one of our thumbnails, maybe. Yeah.
No, it has to be a download, okay? People have to ask you for it. That shows commitment.
Yes. You know what? It's so awesome. People should definitely hear about this. Bill, let me share with you something intimate.
Sure, please.
I'm not even sure if I should be actually showcasing in the podcast per se. So if we finally decide to showcase it publicly, it will be actually for knowledge only. All right. Once upon a time I was in the industry of entertainment. In all different types of entertainment, M18 stuff. Sorry, M21 stuff. Yeah, let's just leave it at that.
What is M21 stuff?
R21 stuff. The sort of entertainment. Me, yours truly. I've been in many different forms of the department of entertainment. I've been dancer. I've been a performer. I've been a clown. I've been an online streamer. I've been a gamer. Any department of entertainment you can think of, I've probably done it. Yeah. Okay. So to cut the story short, I've met clients. Okay, let's call them as clients that oftentimes when they reach out to me for, let's call it as a professional service, layman terms. When they reach out to me for professional services, oftentimes you'll be surprised to find out that they have really good committed and intimate relationship with their wives. Yeah, I know. It's such a phenomenal to actually speak to these clients about this, because so I asked them, I dig deeper into their heart, because this is what we do. We are supposed to act like their perfect missing puzzle of the passion part. That's where we come in to do, you see, as a professional entertainer.
Yep.
So this is what the client has shared with me, that he just couldn't seem to think of his wife or her husband in the way of like dirty thoughts. Like I can't think of her as a stripper. I can't think of her as a like I'm gonna pound on him, you know, like they just couldn't for some reason. It could be the culture of how the family or the relationship is formed. That dirty, the dark thoughts, you know, all the naughty BDSM thoughts is just not within this formula, you know? That's why we have clients. I have experienced clients who often comes from this sort of healthy relationships. So is there a way for all of us hopeless romantics, okay? Because this is one thing I'm afraid of the most myself. If I were to go into a committed relationship, am I going to lose the intimacy part or am I going to lose the passion part? Yeah. Do you think communication is the only way in this scenario?
Well, actually, you know, Jane, here's the thing. If you add in communication, you know how they say sometimes things are left better unsaid than said?
True.
So let me ask you a question. If some of the individuals that you had a professional relationship with were to tell their partners about what was going on, do you
Yes.
think that would bring them closer together or would that sever their relationship? Honestly speaking, most time. And that's communicating, right?
Yeah.
That's telling them.
If you ask my opinion, I'm going to give it straight to you in my biased
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
I would rather have my future wife or husband tell me about it before they go seeking a professional, passionate physical service.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I see. But you're saying before,
Before, yes.
right?
And I will totally
so
say, yes, please go for it if that satisfies you. And please come on and tell me all about it.
Okay, but
Yeah.
but this is now, do you think that's the standard, Jane? Because you have to understand now you're a unique individual. Do you think most people are like your point of view? Honestly.
Good question to me, Bill. No, right?
No.
I mean,
Right.
whoever were to listen to our podcast will be like, what the hell is this two-person talking about?
Correct.
Relationship shouldn't be this way. It should be monogamous. It should be stick to one partner for the rest of your life. That's what monogamy means, and that's what holy matrimony means as well. But I feel like this is a form. I'm sorry, I'm Christian myself. I may not call myself a devout Christian. I'm sorry, by the way, yeah. But we can't deny biology.
You know, Jane,
Yeah.
you hit on a really a good note. Now, and you also said monogamy.
Yes.
And commitment to one person for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
Now do you see where the confusion comes? People
Yes.
usually say that without thinking of the triangle. Now think about it. If you do have a partner at home and that partner is your friend, then you do have monogamy. In that sense, that means that means that your professional relationship with a person that you have passion with is not the person you go home to. So you're still committed to that other person for the rest of your life. That's where we get confused because people think that if passion is not there or if our partner is seeking passion someplace else, then the whole thing is gone. But that's not necessarily the case. Do you see? And so what I think we have to do, Jane.
Disclaimer, by the way. Yeah, it's like we're trying. Just a quick disclaimer before you move on. I'm sorry. Please put a pin on your thought over there. I know I tend to break your line of thought very often.
Okay, go for it because it's usually something really important.
Yes, it is something important. Disclaimer: we are not trying to promote adultery or any sort of disloyal information. That is not within our intent. Our intent here is to make sure that everyone is educated in this all department aspects of a successful relationship. How successful relationship comes about, how we are able to find real love through learning all these facts and whatnot and understanding ourselves. I feel like oftentimes, to add on, if you still remember your line of thought, we do not know what we actually want. Most of us. Even I myself, sometimes I don't know what I actually want, especially when looking into, let's say, if I'm, let's say, I am dating or seeing someone, I will actually probably edit this part out. So, Bill, please continue. After the disclaimer. So, Bill, please continue with that line of thought, please. Yeah, after the disclaimer, please.
Okay. Well, so I want to I want to actually touch on something else that you said. Okay, first of all, monogamy, commitment.
Yes.
Here's the thing, because you started to ask this question, Jane, and I want you to actually keep it in, and that
Yes.
is, we don't really know what we want. Okay, and that's the whole point, Jane. That's what Sternberg, the psychologist, that's what he's trying to get at, and I think he's done a fantastic job of it. Because when you think about the love triangle, let's put it this way. Let's use an example.
Please.
Let's say, for example, that I am a client, and I go out and I seek a professional passion with someone else. Well, that is wrapped up in a whole bunch of other stuff. Like you said, disclaimer wise, we're not advocating one thing over another. But what we're doing, Jane, is we're pulling the curtain aside so that people will actually see reality. Now, they will judge us if they don't like the information that we're giving them. Okay? Because it's not about judgment. So when I seek a professional person for passion, that is my way of fulfilling something that I'm not getting. That is exactly what passion is for. But that doesn't mean I'm giving that person my intimacy, nor am I giving my commitment. I'm trying to save my intimacy and commitment because passion is no longer there. So if we understand that and we're open to changing the dichotomy of relationships, we can be happy.
Dichotomy.
That's the point. Yes.
Is it like the economy of a relationship? Somewhat that word.
Basically, it's like the
dichotomy.
If we can change the idea of how we have a relationship, the dichotomy, how it's set up.
Dichotomy,
because it's always set up whereby physically you have to be with your partner, and if you're not, the relationship is gone. But that's because we don't understand what intimacy and what commitment are. They are two aspects of the whole love. Many times people focus on the death of a relationship, on the passion. You see, so what we're doing, Jane, is we're bringing to them and saying, hey, look, if they feel like they no longer have any passion, doesn't mean their relationship is over. It just means that they need to find help. Now, how do you do that? Some relationships, I don't know any, but I've heard about it.
Please.
Some relationships have where people, they call it open relationship, but what does that really mean? I don't think they're talking about open in terms of intimacy, friendship, and commonality, or commitment. I think they're talking about the passion. Everything always gets in trouble when it comes to that passion.
Yeah,
part,
you're
right?
not wrong about that.
Right? Right?
Because it leads to this disloyalty, non-monogamy, and it breaks the intimacy part, because I would think that commitment and intimacy will go more hand in hand together rather than the passion and commitment.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it's the passion one that we focus on all the time.
Yeah.
And so when people say open relationship, and you know how people go, open relationship, I could never do that. Well, think about it. I think, because I used to think like that as well, Jen. I used to think open relationship, that's nonsense, because I didn't know the breakdown of love. I think we have to treat love as an understanding of a breakdown. It's not just something that's just out there and it's your idea of it. We have to understand the definition of love. And I think that's where we're failing. And so when we say open relationship, when those people say open relationship, they're really only talking about one aspect of that triangle, the passion aspect, right? That's just my thoughts. So anyway, Jane.
Awesome, really awesome. I would like to touch on more, right? Do you think it will make a good if let's say a couple were to go for this couple counseling? Do you by any chance does couple counseling as well yourself, Bill?
I've never done couples counseling. No.
Right, you're more
people
for
haven't come to me for that.
individuality. Individuals? Yours is more individual.
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, typically people come to me with their individual needs. Now, it's a shame because there was one client. Gosh, actually, you know what? All my clients, a lot of my clients are actually in relationships, and they're being devastated by it because of those factors. And it's actually a good point, Jane. I never even considered it.
Yeah, please.
But to consider actually saying, why don't you bring in your partner and let's talk about this together? That's a very good point, Jane. And I have to confess, I've never done that. So that's my failings. That's an excellent
No, please
idea.
do not say that, because I feel like you're more of a individual transformational coach. How could you focus on two people unless they're identical twins, you see? Because everybody is wired differently. They grew up in a different environment. I mean, yeah, I mean, you can multitask. Of course, you are the guru here. But what I'm trying to say is that I think working with couples, it takes more time to understand one individual first, how they are wired, and understand how the other party is wired. Then you can come up with a mutual solution or something to fix the problem, right?
It's a good question, but Jane, think about this. Okay, what if a person like, and I'm going to use one of my clients as an example. They're having a problem in their marriage, and I'm talking to one of the parties of that marriage,
Okay.
and they want to know what they can do to change it. Well,
Okay.
think about it. I'm leaving out one of the most important parts of the formula, the person they're committed to. If I don't talk to the other person, I'm really only doing half my job.
Yeah,
Now,
like
of
listening
course,
to
I'm
one
not
side of the story, you mean?
right. And so it's actually imperative for me to speak with both of them. Not, I'm only talking about committed relationships. Now, am I going to sit down and have couples coaching with someone who's dating? No, because they haven't even gotten to the point of friendship yet. So it's just ridiculous, right? Am I going to sit down and have couples coaching with someone who's got the passion and has got the intimacy but no commitment? No, because they're still only in that kind of like that in that, the dream stage, right? But when they're in a committed relationship where they had the passion but it died, I think that's where couples counseling can come in very important. And I've had those clients and I didn't realize it.
You can
So Jane, let me ask
definitely.
you a question.
Yes, please go
Let me,
ahead.
let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So I remember last time we were talking about the relationship that you were in and the relationship with the individual who had all of the, the toys and all that. And
You mean the
all of that.
triangle, the three
Yeah.
factors?
So
Okay.
where would you put yourself in that now that we've talked about the triangle? Go ahead.
It would be great if you specify your question a little bit more. Like,
Okay.
what is the specification of the answer you're looking for in this story?
Okay. So that relationship, are you still in the relationship, first of all?
No disrespect to any of my recent dates, okay? It's just that we are all born in a different era, born with advanced technology. And back then, when I had these three factors, experienced these three factors in this relationship, particular relationship I can think of, it was during the time before there were even emails and RRC. We were using snail mails. Snail mails, as in physical letter writing, and we know each other when we were very very young. We were like neighbors, and it we were fortunate to get to know each other, not through the online, not through online in any way. It was purely like back to the animal time. We had only tools. Like the tools would be our basketball, our physical cinema, our bus, bus, take buses, bus. Back then, MRT wasn't even that advanced. Yeah. So I think without all these technology factors, for some reason, we naturally develop this sort of a relationship that actually landed all these three factors. Yeah. The commitment part, the passionate part, and the intimacy part, because we all got to know each other from scratch and from raw. And we get to know each other from a very young age. And after we grew up, it's still there. The commitment, the intimacy, and the passion part,
Wow.
even after so long. FYI, to me, it was kind of sort of a serious relationship, because that part of my story actually started from when I was 8 or 9 years old. But of course, we didn't do anything naughty or illegal back then. But it started from as young as we were like 8 or 9 years old, yeah. And all the way until we were in our adulthood, when I was like 18 and he was 19 or older, I believe. Then we had our first ever physical contact. The actual,
Wow.
we consummated. Not in the marriage sense, but we finally consummated after that long 10 years. Yeah. So I feel like I'm not gonna say what is not missing in that relationship, but it's more like what's actually missing in that relationship that actually had these three factors work is the non-existence of technology very beginning in the first place. Believe it or not, I think that might be it is the common denominator if I were to compare this particular relationship with the rest of mine. Yeah, what do you think about this, Will?
Well, so that's what I want to know. I want you to answer that. You said that because technology wasn't around, there was something missing. What was missing? Did you mean that your
Technology was
relationship
missing
had
in a
something?
good way. In a
Oh,
good
in a
way, I
good way.
mean, yeah,
Okay, I
that's why
got you.
I'm
I got you.
saying, yeah, the
Right,
good
right.
thing that was missing in this beautiful piece of story of mine is the uh what do you call this? The non-assistant of technology. Yes, and in
Well,
fact, it was technology that actually separated us.
oh,
Really,
how interesting. How did that happen? Now that's
specifically,
interesting.
yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for asking, Will. I'm so happy to be sharing this with you and our audience. It was when I turned 13 and when he turned 14. That was back in year 1997 when RRC was first introduced to the internet, where the dial-up internet was first introduced to Singapore 96, 97. Yeah. And my this childhood lover, I'm gonna call him childhood lover. He was like, we shouldn't be using snail mails anymore because the internet is so much faster and you reach us directly and whatnot. But I got weird about that form of communication. First and foremost, I was young. First and foremost, I don't know how to work the keyboard. And secondly, it just feels weird to me that I'm contacting with him via a computer. I could see his direct words of response immediately on screen. I remember I had to run over to my big brother's, I call him big brother as well, big brother neighbor's friend's house to borrow his computer to access the RRC to get in touch with my childhood lover. That weirded me out straight away. I'm like, okay, holy shit, I can't keep up with this technology at all. I don't know how to work the keyboard. I don't even have a freaking computer. And he wants to communicate through computer. I'm fucked, bro. And then it was actually okay. If you were to ask me, is something else that the relationship failed? It was duly over my end. My insecurities, my inadequacy in working the computer, my inadequacy in language, and the way I was brought up within my family. I didn't felt I was worthy enough for his standards. He was such a
Mm,
good boy. He was such a good boy. I was his first, by the way, and he married the next woman after me, by the way. Yeah, and he's happily married as we speak.
interesting. Hold that thought. You'll
Yes,
edit this part out. I'm going to turn off the aircon.
no problem. Bill, please have a drink of water.
No,
Please,
I'm good.
please drink water.
No, I've had
Billy,
plenty of water before this. I'm good. I'm good.
you do need to use the washroom or anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Then I want to carry on with your question about
Mm,
how technology may
mm,
have had something to do with it.
mm.
When you're ready, let me know.
Sorry,
That's okay.
excuse me. This is so good. But we'll definitely celebrate a bit later after the recording.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. But before we continue, be, uh, after my story, after you want to touch on my story where it's finished, we will end with uh the situation that most of us singles got into these days, which is mostly the passionate and intimacy part. They lack the commitment part.
Right,
Yeah. Okay.
right. We'll definitely talk about
We
that.
have how many minutes more to go?
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good until 7 o'clock is when I have a client. I'm cool. I'm
Copy
cool.
that. Okay. So
Okay.
please continue.
So let's go to
The
your
technology.
technology
It
part.
weirded me out. So yeah. So what I was explaining before was it weirded me out that I felt so inadequate in so many departments comparing to him, you see, and he's really happily married at the moment. To the
Yeah,
next girlfriend, yeah, that he
right.
had.
Jane,
Mm,
but it still sounds like okay. So let's go up until the time where you had technology invade in your relationship because that's what I call it, an invasion.
mm,
That was external.
mm.
That didn't change the way that you felt for your partner, did it? It changed the way you felt about yourself, and therefore you reacted differently. And so your partner may have felt like something was missing. And this will happen also, Jane, when external forces get involved with love. It doesn't mean that we change the way that we feel, it changes the way that we behave. For example, technology, you weren't comfortable. You're comfortable with snail mail. And so therefore you withdrew. Having a baby is one of the same situations that will change a couple, not because they don't love each other, but because the person may be a bad dad, right? And so the mother may not like that. If a person loses their job, that's an external force that has nothing to do with the partner.
External.
But then they change, right? They don't have the self-confidence anymore, and then they change. Another thing, biologically, midlife. Hormones change, right? Menopause, all these other things. And so the person and their relationship with their partner doesn't necessarily change, but something interferes. And I think that's what technology did with you and your partner. It didn't change the way you loved each other. It changed the way that you viewed yourself, which changed the parameters of friendship. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
And so it kind of mucked up everything.
Do you, by your experience with your clients or with anyone, do you think oftentimes these are the external, is oftentimes the external forces and factors that kind of breaks the love triangle, you feel?
Yeah, I think that's unfortunately that's what it is. But here's the thing: people confuse it. They think there's something wrong with the relationship, but it could be something that happened externally. But they think that, okay, for example, when a person becomes addictive, whether or not it's drugs, alcohol, or anything else, they think that the relationship is falling apart. It's not. It's just one partner is having difficulty, and that's when
falling short.
Right, and that's when I believe the intimacy must kick in full time. You've got to be there as a friend. You've got to be there to like a person. You've got to try to understand them, to help them through that. If you've already got the 3 triangles, this is the part we have to build. Because Jane, all 3 don't run at 100% all the time. You don't have passion, intimacy, and commitment running at 100%.
They will be like in the fairy tale land.
Right, because they vary. They vary in intensity. However, in order to have that blissful relationship, you have to have all 3. It's just that it may be toned down. But when, like, for example, if a person like yourself, technology interferes, then it's up to that's where you have that communication that you spoke about. You have to talk about it because that person's your friend, right? And that friend has to stick in the game because you're committed. If they choose to go off and say, well, you know what, something's wrong with Jane. Well, then what they're not doing is they're not being intimate anymore. And remember last time we were talking about ARE, that whole situation? Well, what's the factor? Okay.
Yes.
That factor of
accessibility.
Accessibility is there, but they're not responding, right? They're not engaging anymore. So if we understand as a community, if we understand the acronyms and we understand this triangle, that's kind of like a visual cue as to how we can, move ahead.
Well, you touched on something that really spot on to one of the coming close to the main topic of this particular podcast that is separated into part 1 and part 2. Yeah. Which is, oftentimes singles, I do find ourselves as singles, we do fall short on the commitment, loyalty, monogamy part. What do you think that is? We often, we immediately, right, fall into the category of passion and intimacy. That's what we are looking for directly. Yeah, it's strange.
That's why,
right?
Yeah, that's why I raised my hand, because I'm guilty of that too.
Me too. Yeah, raise your hand, those of you who are watching this, right? Why do you think that is? Like, is it fear and do you think communication is the only solution to this?
I think it's laziness. Honestly speaking, Jane, laziness. I mean, think about it. In order to do anything right, you have to commit your time to it. You can't be, torn one way or another. And you talked about technology. I think technology, this has a big part to do with technology. And what I mean by that is not necessarily the dating apps, because the dating apps is sort of like, it allows us to go into a candy store and just eat all the candy, right? And we get cavities, right? So it's like, it kills a relationship. But we're not committed to any one candy, right? It also has to do with television, right? Cable, there's so many different stations, and so we lose our focus. So in a relationship, it's sort of like, oh, okay, gosh, you know what? I can date people all the time on the app. I think that drives a wedge between commitment
Yep.
because it doesn't allow a person to actually focus on any one person. So yeah, I've been guilty of that also. Now, of course, there's nothing actually, in my opinion, okay? I don't believe there's anything wrong in having just a passionate love affair. What do I mean by that? Because it happens all the time. You have professional relationship. Because first of all, if you get rid of a passionate professional relationship, you're going to put a lot of people out of work in the world. And that's a whole other problem. No,
Please
seriously.
elaborate more. Yeah, so that people will not be mistaken.
When you pay for sex, when in Japan they actually pay to have a person, have butterflies. When
really?
when you have when you go out and that's it. There is no physicality, but it's just you're dating someone. Think about what is it, Magic Mike, the movie that they had a long time ago. Think about going to those situations, or going to a topless bar, going to a men's dancing. That's passion,
if
right?
you were to
have
put it
all
in
the-
that line of thought, Magic Mike and strip bars, I get it.
Yeah.
They just do it differently in Japan.
Yeah, well,
They're
it's
more of the
professional.
psychological, I'm gonna make you like you're my boyfriend, like you're the only one that matters in the whole world, that kind of feeling.
Well, and Jane, in some places in Asia, I'm not going to pinpoint it, but that's typically,
Singapore?
and I can only speak from a male. I can only speak from a male standpoint.
Yes, please.
They do that because they want to feel empowered, and then the women, they know how to play this game. They are so professional because they will woo and tell them everything they want to hear. But that's their profession.
You're the
So
man,
if
you're the daddy.
Correct.
Bring out the
But if you
animal
get
in
rid
men.
of that,
Please.
if you get rid of that, then you're crushing a whole scene. So that's my argument for just, I don't mind having a passion. I think the problem is people don't understand what it really is. They think that it's real, but it's not real. It's only temporary.
It's
and it's basically only physical.
Simulation.
Right. And the professional definitely knows. They know it's the other side of the formula, the client, that typically doesn't. They think they're all that, but they're not necessarily. The second thing is intimacy. Intimacy on itself is just friendship, familiarity. There's nothing wrong with that, but we have to understand that, right? And so those have happened. Now, a combination of them, like you said, sometimes you'll get passion and intimacy and not commitment. I've been in that, and I can share that with me. So in other words, I thought it was love, right? The reason why I didn't commit, Jane, and I started to touch on this last time at the end of our last session.
Yes, please.
Was because I couldn't see myself living with that person. There was nothing wrong with the intimacy. Friends, it was familiar. We had the passion. But the reason why I couldn't see a commitment is because I believe for myself that love and living, and what I mean by living is living together, are two different things. Because
I completely
I'm sorry,
agree. Yeah.
I just
Biasly.
can't get along with someone else's house habits. If they're messy, I'm not into that because I'm meticulous. If they, like I
Organized.
said, if they eat and talk at the same time.
I do that a lot. I do not think we can be very good roommates.
But
Go ahead.
I don't think I could do that for a long period of time. And so that's what commitment was. Another thing with me is if a person thinks that commitment means having children, I don't know how I feel about that, Jane, but for a long time I didn't want children.
Okay.
And so that's another thing, because you have to be committed to raising children.
Yeah,
it
of
really
course.
has nothing to do with the two people. It has to do with what that added factor. So that's why that's for me. Now, I think that most people get into that situation because of the modern age, right? Because
Culture.
people are not, even with work.
Practices.
Let's talk about a lot of countries, a lot of young people. They go into a job, and what do they do after about 2 years? They quit and they go on to the next job. There's no commitment there. And so what it does is it creates a behavior. What do people do when they go to a restaurant, right? The next time a new restaurant opens, everyone queues up. And then after about 3 or 4 weeks, there's no queue anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because they lost interest. That takes commitment also to stay with it.
Yes.
I think our society has bred that lack of commitment simply because, like what you said, when you have to write a letter, snail mail, you have to commit time to it. You
You are
have
not
to
wrong.
think about what you're going to write.
The
But when you
heart
punch out,
got to put
Right.
into it.
but when you punch out an emoji and ers and oohs, and what kind of commitment is there in that, right? You see, so I think we haven't been nurtured, but we can get back to that. I do have faith as long as people remember and they put forth effort. That's the reason why I think that it's tough getting that commitment. It's not necessarily a relationship. I think it's just about life in general, that people are just not, like I said, they're lazy. We have become lazy. I shouldn't say they, I should say we.
We, I,
Because I've done the same thing.
I'm guilty of that as well. Yeah. Actually,
Yeah,
you did also bring up a very enlightening part, which is, I think for you, if you allow me to be your relationship expert for just a minute, I think
Go
you
for it.
know very clearly what was lacking in your this relationship that you just mentioned, which is actually a fortune, because most people, sometimes when I hear stories, even my own stories, we don't know what went wrong. There's no communication. There is no like, why is this happening, and that we get no answers. So this is why I would feel like some of us, when we go into these dark places searching for answers, is because you don't get that understanding and closure from probably that situation in particular or the opposite party. Yeah. If we are not knowledge enough or experienced enough to see what's missing on our own, we'll probably be stuck. I mean, just a side note, if it's okay to speak about it, we might fall into dark places. Like we don't not getting closure. Remember the 14-year young me back then? That was me being in a really dark place, not knowing what the fuck was going on, what was
Right.
falling short, and what happened. Okay,
Right.
different situation, not a. I would call it a fucked up relationship, because it was fucked up in always. Okay, let's compare it with other kind of relationship. I would call that an honest relationship, because that young man was honest with me about what he did. He had a girlfriend and he had a fiance at that time, and before that, then he went MIA.
Okay, Jane.
Yeah,
So
please.
Jane, so help me out here because I'm confused. Which relationship are you talking about? Are you talking about the one where you were 14 and your partner was 15? Or are you talking about the professional relationship where the person when you were in a different profession? Which
Right.
one?
Okay, that perfect triangle relationship is a separate story. The
Oh,
professional
okay.
relationship when I was in my adulthood. Yeah.
So that's the which one are we talking about?
I'm talking about the unfortunate incident that happened to me when I was 14. That
Okay.
drove me into a very dark place, not knowing what
So
happened.
this is the third situation outside of the
Yeah.
professional, outside the okay, gotcha. Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm just using it as a very distinguishable. If
Right.
you were to think about it, there is not much difference in other kind of relationship, because I would compare that relationship with some other conventional relationship that is even more honest than some relationships these days, because there is, as far as my own understanding as adults, my past dating experience recently, like in my younger 30s or recent 30s, it's not, isn't much communication. I'm always left with the question of, okay, what happened? Why is all this happening? Like, why things went down so ugly? Why things ended so ugly? We can't fathom an answer. Anyway, would it be okay that we touch on the final scenario that is going
Sure.
to definitely benefit our listeners and viewers? So, what do you think all of us can start doing? You mentioned change, right? Of course, we can't control the external forces that is in play, especially nature. I will believe nature is somewhat an external force. What do you think us singles can do to so-called work on ourselves, or change, or what can we do to push ourselves a little bit further into be more receptive, or to attract more this kind of relationship like this that has a commitment, passion, and intimacy sort of a relationship? What do you think we can change or do? You feel? I know
In
it's a
terms
tough
of
question.
no, you're talking about in terms of finding love or in just
Yeah, in
I'm
terms of
sorry.
finding this perfect triangle going in our
Oh,
lives,
okay,
bro.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I think the first thing is to to understand what it is. This is important. You have to understand that love is not just some ephemeral general concept or idea that belongs to you.
It's not
It
just
is
an idea that's personal.
it's
Not
actually it's actually I know this is going to sound weird to some people, but it's actually science driven to some point, to some extent. It's not completely understood, but when you break it down, it's sort of like saying, what is physics, right? It's the laws of gravity. What is metabolic change inside a body? It's the law of thermodynamics. There are certain laws that happen. They don't define who we are, but they have to be understood to a point in order for a person to be able to go about their lives. And I think love falls in that category. I think we get into trouble when we start listening to a gazillion different other people's idea of what love is without having some kind of foundation to at least build on.
knowing
That's the first
yourself.
thing.
Are you trying to
Pardon?
get at? Are you trying to get at? Layman terms means we gotta know what we want. What do we desire?
Well,
Deep down.
first we have to understand what the options are.
Options.
And then we have to know what we want. For example, let's say you're going to the supermarket. And you know how people do. Sometimes they just go to the supermarket, they don't know what they want, and then
Guilty.
they go there. Right. And then you start walking down the aisles. So what are the aisles? The aisles are the options. Then you choose an option. So that's what I'm suggesting about love. It's okay if you don't know what you want, but you have to show up to a love supermarket so that you can actually choose. And so that's what we've done for the viewers, Jane, is we've actually given them a short supermarket with 3 aisles.
Okay.
Those aisles are
Commitment.
passion, intimacy, and commitment. So now they just have to choose what they want.
Okay.
If they want a committed relationship that has passion, that's intimate, then they have to put in the work and they have to understand. And so it helps them understand, just like a supermarket. If you want to make, chicken rice, and you have to buy the rice, you have to buy the chicken and the sauce, and then you get to the checkout. So I know I'm kind of boning it down, but if we do
I
that,
don't think so. Please, I feel like it's truthful and it's honest because oftentimes I myself, when I'm imposing this question on you, I'm slightly programmed to think, yes, Neuroisdelicious or Jane is going to find that ideal kind of relationship. But what we don't get through is the actual process of what the so-called boning down part. Yeah, so please continue. I'm all ears.
So to continue what you highlighted, and so the second step is we have to know what we want, which is what you suggested. You can't know what you want unless you have options and choices. And so that's what it is.
Yes.
That's what passion, intimacy, and commitment is. And so then what do I want? That means what combination of the 3 do I want? For example, chicken is there. That's an option. But what are you going to do with it? Are you going to have chicken cacciatore or are you going to have chicken rice? Then you decide on what combination you're going to have in order to make that meal. And so that's what we're kind of doing with love. What combination of love do I want?
Combination.
And so
how many
do I
percentage of
want-
each you're looking for?
Correct. Absolutely. So for example, for myself, previously, I only wanted intimacy and passion, or I only wanted passion. I knew that. And so I got it confused thinking that I needed all 3. No, you only need all 3 when you're ready to do that. And then you'll find the person for it. And then what you were talking about, Jane, about communication, you'll communicate that to another person. Now, if you communicate to a person that's in the business as you were to entertainment, which is basically passionate, and I say, you know what, Jane, and this happens, right?
Yeah.
It happened in Pretty Woman, right?
Yes.
What happened? John Gere and the name escapes me right. John Gere and
Richard Gere, you mean?
I'm sorry, Richard Gere and
Okay, please.
and the lady. Come on,
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts.
Oh
God,
yeah,
what? I just
I'm
went blank.
American. Please
Okay.
continue.
So Julia Roberts, okay. Remember what happened with that? That was passion driven, and then what happened was one or both of them they started to develop intimacy, right? They started going to the horse thingy and all that kind of thing, and then they started. What was the final? The commitment, and so typically that would not happen, or if it does, you have to communicate, and that's what happened. The communication broke down. So like what you said, if you communicate these phases, these stages, and let a person know. At least they can say, well, you know what? I don't want that. Or they can say, I do want that. And then you work towards that. I think the problem comes, Jane, is what you highlighted, is that we stop communicating these three triangles.
Communication, right?
Yeah.
So simple, yet so God damn, it's right in front of us, right? This answer.
Well, we fail.
Oh my gosh, Bill, you have no idea how much this podcast is mean personally to me, and I believe it might resonate with many of our audience today, especially who are single. Bill, thank you so much for this particular talk show, and I'll see you on the next one on the next topic, shall we?
Right on.
So thank everybody. Yeah, thank you for watching. See you guys.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye. Take care.
And cut.